The railway foreman struck bedrock on August 14th, 1883, 2 miles east of the Kentucky-Tennessee border. When the pickaxe broke through the compacted earth that morning, it exposed skeletal remains measuring over 7 feet in length. What they found beneath that hill would challenge everything documented about who inhabited these mountains. The Louisville and Nashville Railroad had purchased the corridor through a land grant arrangement that required minimal surveying. The terrain in this section of the Cumberland Gap had been considered too remote for settlement, too steep for agriculture, and too far from existing communities to warrant detailed geological assessment. Maps from the 1850s showed the area as largely unexplored territory, marked only with approximate elevation measurements and the notation, difficult passage. Local Cherokee families avoided the region entirely, though they offered no explanation to the railway company representatives who inquired about potential obstacles to construction. Silas Drummond had supervised excavation projects throughout Tennessee and southern Kentucky for nearly 2 decades. He understood soil composition, drainage patterns, and the challenges of mountain terrain. When his lead excavator, a German immigrant named Heinrich Vogel, called him to examine the exposed section that August morning, Drummond assumed they had encountered a natural cave formation, or perhaps an old mining shaft from an earlier, undocumented settlement attempt. What lay beneath the disturbed earth was neither. The cavity measured approximately 12 feet in length and 6 feet across at its widest point. Vogel had cleared enough debris to reveal a deliberate arrangement of stones forming a crude chamber. The construction showed no mortar or binding material, just carefully fitted rocks, creating a sealed space beneath several feet of accumulated soil and root systems. The positioning suggested intentional burial rather than natural geological formation. Drummond ordered his crew to expand the excavation carefully, treating the site as they would any unexpected find that might delay construction or require documentation for the company's legal protection. By mid-afternoon, they had exposed the full extent of the chamber. Inside, partially covered by centuries of mineral deposits and organic decay, lay skeletal remains of extraordinary proportions. The skull alone measured larger than any Drummond had encountered in previous excavations, where accidental grave disturbances had occurred. The long bones, still partially articulated despite the passage of time, suggested a person who would have stood well over 7 feet in height. The bone density appeared unusual even to Drummond's untrained eye, heavier and thicker than normal human skeletal structure. Drummond sent a rider to the nearest town, a coal mining settlement called Pineville, approximately 18 miles southwest. His instructions specified the need for a physician or anyone with medical training who could examine the remains and provide documentation. The railway company required detailed reports on any discoveries that might generate legal complications or delays. He also requested that local authorities be notified, though he doubted the county sheriff would travel such a distance for what appeared to be a very old burial site with no obvious criminal implications. Dr. Nathaniel Ashford arrived 2 days later, having traveled from Pineville with a deputy sheriff who seemed more interested in the railway construction than the excavated remains. Ashford had practiced medicine in the region for 30 years, having relocated from Philadelphia after the war. He had examined numerous skeletal remains during his career, including those from battlefield recoveries and accidental exhumations during agricultural work. What he documented in his initial assessment that afternoon would eventually reach medical institutions and archaeological societies across the eastern United States. The measurements Ashford recorded showed a skeleton of remarkable size and unusual proportion. The individual would have stood between 7 feet 4 inches and 7 feet 8 inches in life, with bone structure suggesting exceptional physical strength. The skull displayed features Ashford could not easily categorize, showing characteristics that seemed inconsistent with the regional population's documented physical traits. He noted these observations in his field journal with careful precision, aware that his findings would likely face skepticism from colleagues who had not examined the remains directly.